Well, we last spoke with Bernie Sanders supporter Matt Karp back in March. That was long before Sanders pulled his hat out of the ring earlier this month, and we reconnect with Matt in New Jersey once again to see which way he's leaning now. So, Matt, you just heard some of Hillary Clinton's speech there. You were a staunch Bernie Sanders supporter. So, what did you think about Clinton's appeal in her speech to people directly at you, in fact?
Well, I mean, the thing with Clinton as a Sanders supporter, there are real reasons to be wary, to be reserved about Clinton making promises, making gestures towards Sanders. Her record, obviously, her record and her husband's record in the history of the party has generally been, pushing in often their entire career. I think you could argue has pushed in the opposite direction towards triangulation, towards a third way politics that moves away from the sort of New Deal left-wing horizon that Sanders is pushing for. At the same time, she has been, I think, one thing the speech showed, and maybe just as important, the platform committee negotiations before the convention showed, is that she is possibly amenable to leverage. I don't think she's doing it necessarily out of her own personal belief, but in some ways that's less important than whether she's able to, whether Sanders supporters are able to leverage their influence within the party, outside the party, to extract concessions. And I think there's evidence that might be possible.
Yeah, I think she noted in her speech that the platform is a co-production, and she was appealing on Democrats to implement it together. Okay, let's talk about Trump for a second. He made a similar plea, I know you're aware of. What did you make of his overture to people like you?
When you think about Trump, I mean, I don't know a single Bernie Sanders supporter who has even considered voting for Trump. I mean, this is somebody who is the embodiment, I would say, of everything Sanders campaigned against. He's a callous billionaire who's made his career exploiting the very trends that he's now cynically denouncing in order to appeal to Bernie voters. But I mean, even aside from his, and his scapegoating of some of the most vulnerable people in our society, Muslim Americans, Mexican Americans, in order to distract attention from people like himself, the billionaires like himself who are much more to blame for the problems that he is speaking to, I find it, not appealing at all, revolting, and I agree with Bernie that Trump needs to be stopped.
And yet, you still count yourself as an undecided voter at this point. Is that right? And if so, why?
Well, I mean, I think, I don't know, my view about my vote, I live in New York State, which is, overwhelmingly likely to go for Hillary Clinton. So if I were in a swing state, I wouldn't be undecided. I think I agree with Bernie that the first step to protect our movement, to protect this, what's most valuable about the Sanders movement was not specifically electing Bernie Sanders. It was putting these ideas about $15 minimum wage, about the preposterous, overwhelming power of Wall Street on our economy, about single-payer healthcare, putting these ideas in the main political mainstream. And I think if those ideas are going to have a future, I think we have to think tactically short-term, strategically long-term. And I think on both counts, our movement is structurally better off with Hillary Clinton as president. So I'm not undecided about that. I think one's own vote in a non-swing state is a somewhat lesser matter than the larger question of where the movement goes. Okay. And I think there are other things that the movement needs to be concerned with beyond just this presidential election. Sometimes I think that pressure in our country narrows down just to who are you voting for. But there are other things that we should be doing.
Let me just ask you quickly while we still have you. Do you think most Sanders supporters are in the same camp with you on this at this point?
I think so. I mean, I think there are people who have different readings of the tactics and the strategy, and think it's more important to maintain a kind of viable left-wing opposition to the Democratic Party. And I wouldn't discount that position. That in fact the only way that left-wing ideas get that people like Clinton will even attend to them is if there's somebody pushing from the outside. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a case to be made for that. I also think there's the need to defeat Trump in the short term, for me, is more significant than that. So okay. I will be supporting Clinton, I think.